let's start let's start this conversation. Number 10 in the series of the dynamics of speaking the truth. By the way, each video has its own dynamic, if you will. The benefit, that which you receive, that's a benefit, that which you receive. I never cared for condescending. That means talking down to people. So I'll be careful about that, not to make sure it doesn't happen, that is. So this is the dynamics of speaking truth, number 10. And it's an important one, given it is a conversation about an orderly mind. I hope you did catch my little irony there, my little jokes. So an orderly mind has some, what you might call, preferences or necessities or things that are needed in order for an orderly mind to be within you, engaged within you, that is. There are many of them. Of course, you can't have any feelings if you're going to have an orderly mind, because an orderly mind wouldn't go, I'm scared, I didn't do that, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to shoot you, I'm going to rape you, I'm going to go to... An orderly mind wouldn't have any of that. So the first thing that an orderly mind requires, I mean, maybe not the first thing, but one of the things is no feelings. Feelings, of course, are things that I don't know if you've been watching these as they've been happening, but feelings are things that we added after we added our ego at somewhere around just before we reached the age of 4. We added our ego to our life and removed all life, if you will, removed all intelligence and inserted ego in its place. So the other thing that is needed, besides the erasing or removal of feelings, is the necessity of ending your lies. You can't lie and have an orderly mind, because lies inserts chaos in the mind, because then you have to keep track of which lies you told. You have to keep track of the reasons, the explanations, the excuses that you use for the lies. Then you have to keep track of those. And then you have to defend your reasons, your excuses, your explanations, all those idiotic excuses. So you have to keep all that nonsense in your memory, which fills up your memory, and by the way, causes Alzheimer's. However, if you speak the truth, that allows you to maintain an orderly mind, because the truth doesn't need that memory. It doesn't need to be remembered. It's the truth. Each time it's the truth. It's the truth each time. I didn't just repeat myself. I just spoke a truth. So if you care to really discover, find out for yourself, actually create for yourself an orderly mind, then you need to perhaps listen with what I've spoken thus far. Because if you are lost in feelings, which means you're lost in thought, thinking is thinking you, you're not doing your own thinking. The thinking is thinking you. Somebody can send you into the stratosphere if they call you a Jew or a nigger or a bastard or whatever those nonsensical things that people use to control you with. And you're so dumb, you respond to them. Somebody says that thing, and you jump up and down. Oh my God! And here's the bad news: it's getting worse. You almost can't say anything to anybody because it upsets them. So if you have upset in your purview, in your mind, if you can be upset, you don't have an orderly mind. You have a mind that is lost in itself, lost in thought, lost in chaos, lost in, what's that guy? Every once in a while I think of something he said. That fellow, it's not his real name, but he goes by inherent, what's his name? Not Eckhart, the other guy. Anyway, it'll come up to me. It'll come back to me in a minute. Jack Rosenbaum, I think his Baum is his real name, but he goes by another name. I just lost going back into my memory to come up into that with that name. I got lost in it. So if you have the problem of becoming upset, you don't have an orderly mind. If somebody can send you into the stratosphere with you're a bitch or you are all those names, I really don't even care to use them because it sends people into the stratosphere. The people say, oh, that guy just said, I could be, if I were a real famous guy, a popular guy, people could be all over me now. They'd say, he said these words, nigger, Jew, pap, that, and then they would be spanking me. Fortunately, that's not the case. So if you truly care to consider the possibility for you to create an orderly mind, it requires then that you create the possibility for listening with yourself. It's pretty simple, isn't it? However, there's some caveats about listening with yourself. You need to listen for the tonal quality. You need to listen to, are you calling names or are you simply speaking the truth? There's a distinction there, you know. Calling somebody a name is in the domain of knowledge and thought and belief, the dream world. But ascribing an assessment about the manner in which somebody presents themselves is a function of creation, intelligence, and truth. However, those two things are extremely confused, mostly because people don't have any consideration about what creation, intelligence, and truth is. It's an entirely different dimension. It's in another contextual space. It's in reality. It's not in the dream world of God belief, religion, all of the nonsensical beliefs that we have, all of these lies and nonsense that we live our life from, that can't be where a logical, orderly mind is. Forget that word logical, because logic is part of the insane world of chaos. So is it possible for you to consider that you do not have an orderly mind? If you have to control things, if you have to always be right, if you are narcissistic, if you are greedy, if you believe things, that's the biggest perhaps of all the ones I've just. Suppose you're dumb enough to believe something, then at least consider for yourself that you have no relationship to an orderly mind. An orderly mind would believe nothing. An orderly mind would perhaps have what's called an opinion, But that opinion would be fluid. It would say, well, this appears to be the case, and it would stay there just while it watches, and then it watches for what happens next. And if what happens next negates the opinion, then guess what? A miracle for you guys. They alter their opinion. I said, oh, wait a minute, it wasn't this, my mistake. It wasn't this, it was this. But belief says, oh, you dumb son of a gun, it's this. Belief is frozen in place, like damming a stream up, as I've said before in these conversations. Once you dam a stream of fresh water up, before long it becomes stagnated. And then it kills everything around it. People, animals, whoever drink it. The same thing. The exact same thing is true. I'm repeating this because a friend of mine told me that it was a turning point perhaps in her life, or at least something that she recognized, that belief dams up the natural flow that we have of intelligence. And it leaves us with the belief, and then guess what? The belief itself begins thinking us. And this consideration about an orderly mind is gone. You're in total chaos. Once you believe something, you're in total chaos. And it's even worse than that. Once you believe something, they can introduce your buddies, your good friends, your Fox News and your CNN or whatever all those things are, can introduce anything to you. You say, oh yeah, I believe that. No, I don't believe that. To believe something is the same thing as to not believe something. They're both belief. Don't hold on to either one of them. Take a look at it and say, well, maybe. Take a look at maybe I believe it. Maybe it's that way. Maybe it isn't that way. I don't know. That's an orderly mind. An orderly mind does this. It checks. And then when it checks, it comes up with a new answer. It checks that answer. And then guess what happens to that answer? It gets checked. Only an idiot stays with a belief. Well, we have people who stayed with the same 2,000-year-old belief about snakes talking and water-walking winemakers and all that nonsense. They've stayed with that thing for 2,000 years. They say, I'm a be, oh, that's another song. I'm going to be a born-again Christian. I'm going to give my life to my Lord Jesus Christ. And that old boy, as if he's ever alive, has been dead for 2,000 years. But guess what? They hold on to him. And they keep reading. Well, here he says that, here he says, and then they think that they're following some thing that's going to make them a better person. Of course, they have their guns and their knives and their bullets ready to kill people who question how much they follow their Lord Jesus Christ. So is it possible, then, for you guys to get past all my crazy nonsense here and hear this possibility being presented? It is possible for you to have an orderly mind. An orderly mind does not need a memory to remember its lies and its thievery and its cheating and its stealing. Because if it notices that it lied, if it notices that it stole, if it notices that it was a thief, guess what an orderly mind does in order to stay orderly? It says, hey, wait a minute, I just lied. I considered it was this, now I see that it's this. Or I just cheated, I just saw it. Hey, I just cheated. I was going down the road 50 mile an hour, and I looked over and it said 35 mile an hour zone. I'm cheating. I'm a liar. I'm a thief. I've gone over. I have this thing called driver's license, and on it says I will adhere to the rules of driving. And here I am, a liar, a thief, and a cheat. I'm doing 50 in a 35 zone. So you hit the brakes and you, well, what I do is I apologize. Oh, my mistake. I lied. I'm going over the speed limit, and I bring myself down to the speed limit, and I go the speed limit. I know that's kind of stupid, isn't it? I mean, those people don't know what they're talking about. Speed limits, what are they for? To be broken. Just like why do you think we have so many rules? Because people consider that rules are made so they can break them. And then more rules are made, more rules. And the problem is the people who are making the rules are people we put there, and they have a chaotic, non-orderly mind. I mean, look at these idiots. We've got that Gatz guy who finally got a high school girlfriend when he's 35 or 40 years of age. We got that Marjorie Green who couldn't pour pee out of we have, what's a Bogart? You got a girl named Bogart. I don't think it's Bogart, but it's something like that. And Jim Jordan. I'm from Ohio. I lived in Ohio. I don't think you can get much. Oh, Lord, Jim Jordan. At any rate, I'm getting carried away with I like to bring those things in because they are our current life. There are the things that we endure, that we see happening. For instance, for those of you who believe in God, we've had a miracle here in America. It was a complete miracle. First time in history since we've been keeping track with calendars that this has ever happened. We went from January 5th to January the 7th. Just like that. No 6th ever happened. No attack, no insurrection, none of that stuff. It was a miracle. I don't know how that happened, but you guys will be happy to know. That's what happened. And they'll be happy to tell you that in the history books that they want to write. Anyway, I'm getting off into things that make sense, so I better shut up here. Anyway, it's 17 minutes and 40-some seconds. That's a long time. What do they call that? Attention span. Perfect experience. First, I'm suggesting that you discover for yourself that you have a chaotic mind. It's controlled chaos because you realize if you rob a bank, you may get caught. If you shoot somebody, you may go to jail. If you speed, you might get a ticket. That's controlled chaos. To adhere to the requirements, that's an orderly mind. To not be told to do it, but do it because here's something that's almost never heard of, almost completely gone, if it was ever on planet Earth. I'll introduce one new thing, and it might be my next crazy conversation that we have all together. Keeping your word. Keeping your word is a huge, huge thing. And it's been my experience of observing for 78 years, well, maybe a few of those I wasn't old enough. The people don't keep their word. They say, I'm going to do this, and then they don't do it. Or I'm not going to do that, and then they do it. They lie, they lie, they lie. And then guess what they do? They have a reason, a justification. And if that doesn't work, they have an explanation about why they lied. A perfect experience to each of you. In the discovery that you have a chaotic mind and that it is possible for you to create within yourself an orderly mind simply by taking a look at the dynamics of speaking the truth. See ya.